Hello friends, welcome back. I hope you have been enjoying the series of Scrum learnings, and this session we will learn the Scrum events. There are 5 important Scrum events, and out of which we will learn the sprint and the sprint planning today in this session, and we will go on with the next set of 3 items in the next session. It will be very easy, so listen to it carefully. Now, all the events in the Scrum are contained in a box or a container called a sprint. I will define the sprint a little later. All the events in the Scrum will be packed inside that container. So it contains everything. The sprint contains everything. All the events in the Scrum are very carefully designed in such a way that the target of inspection and adaptation, whatever we have seen earlier with respect to the Scrum, the goals of Scrum, we need to inspect, we need to adapt, all those things are to be clearly done, and we facilitate that. And these will work on increasing the transparency too. And the most important point is to increase the regularity, conduct the meetings properly, periodically. The Scrum meetings are to be conducted periodically and properly. Avoid unnecessary meetings. That's the core important value that we bring in onto the table. Because most of the time it goes on in the meeting, which is actually wasting of time if you do not have proper plans. When you do not have proper plans, meetings will happen unnecessarily, and that's a waste of time. Scrum events should avoid that. Scrum is targeted in bringing and increasing the regularity. And everything is time boxed here, which means there is a definite start time, there is an end time, and no meeting can go more than that. There are 5 Scrum events, as I told you: sprint, sprint planning, daily Scrum, sprint review, and sprint retrospective. We are going to see the sprint and the sprint planning in this session, and the rest of the 3 will be discussed very clearly in the next session. I'm sure you will enjoy that as well. What is sprint? Sprints are the core of the Scrum, where the ideas and the thoughts are converted to values. Values are nothing but the target. What is sprint? We have to define that. I have already defined that in my previous videos, but here I am having the necessity to define it again. A sprint is a very short time box period when a Scrum team works to complete an amount of work. The sprints are the very heart of the Scrum and the agile methodologies, and getting the sprints right will help increasing the efficiency, will help the team to ship better software with reduced headaches. So what is it? A sprint is nothing but a time box period. I know what is the start, what is the end. So when there is a time box available, and if the Scrum team works within the time box to get you the result, we call it sprint. Mostly the sprint is for a period of a month or less. It is mostly. But when can a new sprint be started? Well, once you complete the previous sprint, you can start the new sprint, and this has to follow. I mean, once your sprint is completed, sprint review has to be following it. All the work starting with sprint planning, daily scrums, sprint review, sprint retrospective are all conducted within that sprint. Whatever terminologies that we are seeing here, the planning, the daily scrum, the sprint review, sprint retro, everything will be coming under one box called as, under one umbrella called as sprint. So sprint holds everything together. Remember it. When can you go with the next new sprint? Once you complete the previous sprint, once you complete the review of the previous sprint, you can go with it. Now we are going to the next level. When the sprint is ongoing, what are all the things that can be done? First, you should not do anything that can endanger the sprint goal. Second, quality is paramount. Quality can never be compromised or tampered. Refinement of the product backlog is okay. Please understand, it is still okay. When you go ahead with the process, when you go ahead with the sprint, when you keep working with the sprint, you may understand something new. So the scope can be clarified again, renegotiated with the product owner, and the product owner's concurrence is important for the change. A sprint can be cancelled if the sprint goal becomes obsolete. Please understand this point. You can cancel the sprint provided the sprint goal has become obsolete. Only the product owner has the authority to cancel the sprint. This is very important point again. Remember it. Now, what is sprint planning? We can call this simply as a blueprint or the plan. Yes, this is the place where the planning happens on what kind of work is to be performed during the sprint. The Scrum team is the one who creates this collaborative plan, and PO has an important role to play. PO shall ensure that the attendees are aware of the PBI, which is nothing but the product backlog items. The list of items in the product backlog should be made visible, should be made understandable to the attendees. To the Scrum team, they should know that what are all the items that are available in the product backlog. The Scrum team may also invite, they are free to invite, in fact, any other person who is an SME, subject matter expert, or experienced people to attend this planning, because they can give their insights also. So this is a blueprint or a planning meeting. Scrum team is the one which is playing a major role here. The PO's responsibility is to enable Scrum team with the knowledge of what all the things to be done within the sprint, the product backlog items, all this to be clarified. The Scrum team is free to call anybody who is a subject matter expert, who can give some knowledge, who can give some inputs to make the planning better. So that's it, is the sprint planning. The sprint planning is going to address multiple questions that you have in your mind. That is why, what and how. We will see that. Why? This is a question that anybody should ask. This is a very good question. The PO will analyze and propose how the product will elevate the value during the current sprint. Why are we doing it is the question that we need to answer. Second, the Scrum team comes together to define a common goal, common sprint goal, which is directly related to the sprint value. The same gets communicated very clearly to the stakeholder. And remember, the sprint goal must be finalized before the sprint planning. You have to do that very clearly. Now, what is the next question? What can be done within this sprint? First point, the product backlog is the collection of items to be worked on. The PO and the developers discuss and select which are all the items that are to be done, which are all the items that are to be worked in this particular sprint. You can even refine that, you can even improve that, and this is a very important thing. Refinement is going to happen consistently. That's a major component of the Scrum. Scrum is all about iterative and refinement nature of it. There is an important thing to be remembered as well. How much can be completed within this time box? So that is very important to be discussed. How much can be completed within this time box? And it is very challenging to select what are all the things that you are going to complete out of the existing list that you have in priority. And developers are the best to decide this, and they can tell what are all the things that they can complete within this time frame with their past experience. So what is very important? There is a lot of items in the list. You need to select which item is going to be done now, and that's selected based on your previous experience and the discussions that you are making. How much time do you need to complete it? Can you complete it within the time frame that is allotted to you? All these are going to come here in this what. And how is the next question that you need to answer. The developers are the one who can give you the best answer for this. They can tell you how they are going to do that. They are the one who are going to tell that, but make sure that the definition of done is always met. If the definition of done is not met, whatever you are going to do is not useful. And how much bigger is the task? How are we going to work on the task? Smaller the better. Divide and rule is a golden word actually. So we are going to divide the lot bigger things into smaller things, and we will work on that, and the developers will decide as in how much can be broken, what are all the items that can be broken, what are all the items that can be done now. All this will be decided by the developers. So how are we going to break is the question. How much are we going to break is the question. How much work are we going to do is the question, will be answered in this section. And finally, we are going to turn all the contents, whatever hard work we are doing, into the value, which is nothing but output. So we answer three questions. First one, why? We are going to deliver value. That's the reason. Second, what? What are you going to do? You've got a lot of things in the picture. Which one are you going to do now? That's what. How are you going to do? I've got a lot of things in picture. I'm going to do that. I'm going to work on that. How are we going to do that? Which technology am I going to do? How am I going to break it? Developers are the best people to tell it. And final goal is nothing but going ahead with delivering value. In the next session, we will discuss the daily Scrum, sprint review and sprint retrospective, which are also the very important components in the Scrum event. Thank you very much for following my channel and the content. If you have any questions, please go ahead and type it in the comment section. I'll be very happy to answer. If you like the channel, kindly subscribe. Thank you.